The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
It wasn't even close. Pacers dominate the Thunder in Game 6 of the NBA Finals and force a Game 7.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast.
The final home game of the 2024-25 season just happened, and it was the Pacers using their home crowd, using their advantage today to play just an absolutely terrific basketball game, a ridiculous second quarter, highlight plays. Guys fighting through injury, shots are going in, the Thunder turn it over like crazy, and the little things all go the Pacers' way. And for the first time in a while, a Game 7 in an NBA Finals, the Pacers are in it. No more questions about the biggest game in franchise history. It is coming on Sunday. Had the Pacers do it? The little things, Haliburton fighting through it, offense great, defense even better. So much to talk about today. And I want to talk about the same thing I talked about after Game 5. But in reverse. After that game, I wrote about it. I talked about it. The players talked about it. It was the little things. In fact, today's win dates back to Game 4. The Pacers drop that game, choke it away. They know it. They even were okay with me asking about sulking after it. And after that game, they said, we did the little things so bad to close that game. We got to get better at the little things. In Game 5, they were not better at the little things. Their turnovers were abysmal. I don't want to go too back into Game 5, but you know all the bad things they did in Game 5. Everything they did bad in Game 5 that was an important little thing, they flipped on its head in Game 6. And that was massive, given that they're dealing with an injury to their star player. Although we'll talk about that. You wouldn't even know it in this game. The biggest little thing, the whole series, the possession battle. I asked Andrew Nemhart about the Pacers offense at their practice media day before Game 6. He said, we cannot turn the ball over that much if we want to score enough. 10 turnovers for the Pacers in this game. That's a good number against not the Thunder. That's an awesome number against an OKC team that loves to force turnovers. That's what they do. That's what they try to win by doing. The Pacers took care of the ball, and their ball movement was crisp. 23 assists does not tell the story of their ball movement very well. They were moving it great and getting shots that they liked, even early in the game when they were missing shots. Everybody felt like the shots they were getting were great. Their offense was moving. And they forced 21 turnovers from the Thunder, 8 from SGA, 13 from the rest of the team. Brilliant defensive adjustment, if you want to call it that, by the Pacers, who did an awesome job of when SGA or J-Dub would get below the foul line, would send a second player for defense, get all over him, force that player to either make a pass or try to dribble to get more open. That extra dribble led to a lot of swipes or a lot of poor passes that the Pacers were more than able to swallow up and turn into huge plays, including the highlight of the finals, sans Tyrese Haliburton buzzer beater, obviously. The traditional highlight, I would say, of the finals of the Tyrese Haliburton steal into no-look pass, no-look. A Tyrese Haliburton no-look is him looking right at the guy and then looking away to spin to Pascal Siakam, who posters a Thunder defender. Unbelievable play. Building explodes. Cambridge Fieldhouse was incredible for this one. And it was in the middle of a second quarter run of just dominance for the Pacers that we'll talk about in a second. The turnover battle, the possession battle, a huge little thing that went terrible in Game 5 and went great for the Pacers today. Jalen Williams, a little thing that turned into a big thing in Game 5. 40 points. In this one, he was still kind of good. 16 points for Jalen Williams. 5 free throw attempts, 3 boards, 1 assist, 3 turnovers. They were great defending him on a team level, right? They were much better at that stuff I just said, getting at him when he got below the foul line. He was a minus 40. I kind of think he was just on the floor during bad times. Primarily the solo Shea minutes, for example, went much better, air quotes. He was still minus 17, but they were way better against the guy that's been killing them the whole series. And they were better on SGA too. SGA 21 points on 15 shots. Again, both those guys were like fine scoring, but a lot of turnovers. The ball movement wasn't there. They just weren't quite as threatening in this game, right? They still made 13 combined shots and the Pacers ran through them, right? That was a little thing, J-Dub being good, that turned into a huge thing in Game 5 when he had 40 that they reduced back to being a little thing, and they did very well at containing him today. Rebounding was a problem last game, right? Adding on to the Pacers' possession battle struggles in this game, just 4 offensive rebounds for OKC. 2 from Hartenstein, 1 from Chet, 1 from Dylan Jones in garbage time. The Pacers had 11 offensive rebounds. 5 of them were from Siakam, who is just fantastic in this game. Miles Turner fought with force on the glass despite not making shots. He did just about everything else well. People are going to say he had 4 rebounds. That is true. Watch him in this game. There's a reason those other guys that we're talking about did not have good rebounding numbers. That's because Miles Turner did a good job fighting on the glass. They kept the Thunder away from that little thing becoming a big thing. They had 19 offensive rebounds in the last game. So many of these little things were problems for the Pacers last game. They all turned into advantages this time. I have more. I could keep going. I could keep reading through the story. One that almost was a problem that the Pacers immediately solved. Their slow start was a mess in Game 5. Absolute disaster. They were down 10 at the end of that first quarter. They lost that game by 11, right? Clearly it mattered. They were down 10-2 in this one. Timeout from Carlisle. And here they come. Actually, the timeout might have been like right before that. Regardless, they come out of that timeout. Siakam's on J-Dub now. They're changing their offensive process. Siakam with a quick 5 points. Nembhard hits a 3. Nembhard hits another 3. They're ahead. Off they go. Never trailed again. How about that for a quick start? They were up 10 in the first or 9, 10, I can't remember. In the first quarter, they were only up 3 after 1, but just dominance in the second quarter. The response to that slow start was massive, right? All the little things that were just awful for the Pacers in the last game amounted to big things in this game in their favor. That to me was the story of the game because 108's not exceptional for them. I've talked about this a million times in the playoffs, but prior to this game, they were undefeated when they scored over 110 and hadn't won a game when they were under 110 this whole playoffs. This is the first time. And that's a testament to some other stuff to get to. Shout out to Twitter user Alex. I can't remember your last name. I'm sorry. That reminded me of that stat after the game. They did it. They won a game under 108. But they weren't that exceptional on offense, but they nailed all these little things, and that kept OKC away. 91 points for the Thunder. And that is what the other story of this game is. Beyond all those little things was the Pacers defense being awesome. And a lot of this boils down to the possession battle stuff we talked about. The Pacers took 18 more shots in a relatively even free throw game. That matters so much in a 17-point win. But holding the Thunder to another relatively poor shooting night. By the way, the Pacers win without a magnet ball game, about average from 3. 8 for 30 from deep were the Thunder. 42% on all shots in this game. They had 2 starters under 25% from the field, 2 bench players at exactly 25%. Caruso missed all his shots. Their defense was way better, especially in the paint at making life harder on OKC. 40 points in the paint for the Thunder. The Pacers did not have a good paint game either. 30 points in the paint for the Pacers, but they did a good job keeping the Thunder, who are not as good of a shooting team as the Pacers, away from the paint where they couldn't get anything going. Excellent defense all night with the steals, 16 of them on those 20 turnovers, right? 21, right? The opposite of how the Pacers try turnover games go, where the Thunder don't have that many steals. The Pacers are just unforced daring their way through the game. The Pacers were stealing to stop the Thunder, so their defense was just awesome, right? In a way that it hasn't really been in this series. That second quarter, 30-9 run, their defense was huge. 35 points allowed for the Pacers in the second and third quarters combined. The Pacers had 36 in just the second quarter, right? They were just awesome on that end of the floor. Their best level they've hit defensively in the series. That was a huge part of this win. That's not a little thing. That's a huge thing. And it went great. They need to carry that into the next game. Obviously, role players at home, there's a thing about that. They might be better. We'll talk about that later. The other part of this was that second quarter stretch was just sublime. 32-31 Pacers. They take a timeout. J-Dub just scored, right? It looks like the little bit of a surge is coming from OKC. Timeout. Nesmith comes in during the break. Tony Bradley and Tyrese Halliburton come in, I believe. And then TJ McConnell immediately hits 2 shots, and the Pacers were just, here they went. Zooming. They go up 6 right away. So then they go up 8. OKC takes the timeout. That didn't help at all. The Thunder could not score. They got to 31 at 32-31 with like 9:30 to go. They were at 33 until, like the middle of the quarter, 5-minute marks when they hit 34, right? They could not score, and the Pacers kept scoring 50-35 with 3:39 to go over that 6-minute stretch, like an 18-4 run. I believe it came 30-11 by the end of the quarter, and that both of those numbers are awesome. In 9.5 minutes to score 30 points, magnificent, huge, significant, whatever words you want to use, to only allow 9, equally significant. The Pacers offense was at their best in that stretch. Their defense was at their best for this whole series all night. An absolutely terrific performance from the Pacers. Their best game of the series. and they force a game 7. And we will talk about game 7 in the third segment, but we have to talk about what Tyrese Halliburton just did and what it meant to the Pacers. Calf injury, SMAF injury, obviously still a big deal. Fighting through it, played great given the circumstances, was a leader by example, star doing star things.
The NBA playoffs are almost over. In fact, they could end this very evening. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action while you still have a chance. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals and assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You can place that first $5 bet on some NFL playoff dark horses. The Carolina Panthers sit at plus 240 to reach the postseason. The Bears plus 190 and the new look Raiders plus 320. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
The Oklahoma City Thunder fall in Game 6 to the Indiana Pacers. The best two words in sports. Game 7 in OKC on Sunday night. What a game. What a game this was not for OKC. We're here in the Pacers training room, just outside the Pacers locker room in the Gainbridge Field house. So different look in Indiana right now, but here nonetheless to talk about what was an absolute no-show for Oklahoma City. You know, there's a lot to dissect, and there's a lot of big feelings and emotions after a game like this for most of you listening. But the reality is the Thunder were never going to win this game. Like, it's hard to believe that at the end of the first quarter it was a 4-point contest, because when this game started, OKC goes on a 10-2 run to start the game. And it felt like, okay, you know, the Pacers are missing shots. The Thunder's defense is forcing misses, and they're doing their normal stuff of their defense allowing them to buy their offense some time until they settle in. And then from there, Indiana went on a 22-7 run that OKC just could not recover from as the Pacers rolled from beyond the arc. The Pacers had more urgency. They had more force. They had more desperation. They had more effort than Oklahoma City. The Pacers looked like a team that had their backs against the wall because they did. And Oklahoma City did not match that. And that's one of the big lessons from this postseason run. You know, the Thunder can still win the NBA championship. And I think that, you know, most people would pick the Thunder to win an NBA championship in Game 7. But one thing that they can't get back now with this missed opportunity is the ability to show that you can recreate a sense of artificial desperation, artificial urgency. Because we've said it on this show. The Thunder are excellent at responding when they get hit in the mouth. This team's only lost consecutive games twice all season. And those two times, once when they didn't have a center, and once whenever they had the 1 seed wrapped up. That's it. That's the entire list of consecutive losses for Oklahoma City. They've been excellent at responding to losses in the postseason with, again, not losing 2 straight games, with washing out bad games and flushing them with great ones the next outing. And they're going to have to do it again in Game 7. And I think that they will do it again in Game 7 as a spoiler alert to the prediction and preview portion of the coming days. But what they can't prove now is that they can replicate that level of urgency when times are going good. When times are going good, can they carry the momentum of a Game 5 into a Game 6? They didn't in Denver. They didn't in Indiana, you know, in this playoff run in round 2 and now the NBA Finals. I think that the closest that they've gotten to that would be the Minnesota series that they did end in 5 after bouncing back in Game 4, following the blowout loss in Game 3, then winning Game 5 at home. But even in, you know, in that where you go from being up 2-0 against Minnesota to being blown out in Game 3 and being non-competitive in Game 3, like not having the urgency that you needed to have in that game on the road, like that's another lesson, an example of the Thunder. I don't want to say necessarily being complacent. Maybe that's too heavy-handed, but it boils down to complacency. It's no shock that like their worst outings this playoffs, Game 3 against Memphis, after being up 2-0 and doing so in historic fashion, like quite literally historic blowout fashion. Game 3, against Minnesota, we just talked about the lopsided loss. they had a letdown in game 6 against Denver, a letdown in game 6 against Indiana. And Denver's game 6 never got to this proportions where it was like you were bludgeoned. Like you weren't bludgeoned on the scoreboard in game 6 against Denver. But in game 6 against Denver for 48 minutes felt like Denver was in control. So did this game for Indiana. So the Thunder's ability to respond has been great. They've got to learn now to take the next step and be tone setters, and that's something that they have to do in the future. And like that's part of this, right? Whenever we talk about when the Thunder can still grow and can still improve in future years, that's not just something to say. That's not just coach speak. That's not just something to prop up the resume. There are tangible things that this team can get better in, and they can get better at understanding the moment in front of them before it's too late. Because the reason why I say they can't do it this year is Game 7 is a response. It's not a tone setting. Game 7 is there's no artificial desperation. It's just desperation. There's no artificial urgency. It's just urgency. Like that's real whole cane sugar. That's not Splenda in Game 7. They need to figure out how to use some Splenda in Oklahoma City. And they'll have to do that next season, even if they're champions. It's like, even if they're champions, they're still going to have at least one tangible way among many more that they can actually improve. And, this game was a game that the Thunder were never going to win. I mean, when Indiana wins the bench points 48-37, with the caveat, it's 48-37, with the caveat that they had 31, the Thunder did, points off the bench in the fourth quarter. In absolute garbage time. You were spotted 31 bench points in the fourth quarter, and you still lost bench points 48-37. You can't win shooting 41% from the floor, 26% from three, and 80% at the charity stripe. It's not a winning recipe to be outshot from the three-point line 15-8. It's not a winning recipe to lose the turnover battle for this Thunder team 21-10. You can't win games getting dominated on second chance points, dominated in the fast break with how this Thunder team is set up. The Thunder finally saw Indiana win a game where they scored under 110 points because they only needed 108 to win, 108-91. But there was one lead change when one tie in this game, and other than that, it felt like Indiana was completely in the lead for at least 40 of these minutes. For 40 minutes, Indiana was in control, at least. But the Thunder just could not get anything going offensively. And it starts with the fact that they didn't play to their identity. Like the Pacers only shot 41, 35, 68 shooting splits, and they only scored 108, which has been a death nail for Indiana this postseason, to score under 110, 111 points. But guess what they did do? They did make 7 more threes in OKC after starting out 0 for 4 from 3, and they took 18 more shot attempts. They won the possession battle, a key place where Oklahoma City usually dominates.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
New news when it comes to Ace Bailey and what's going on there.
You are
Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get to this Ace Bailey stuff because there is some new stuff here, Keith, that you're going to talk about. But I just want to say, from fallout from yesterday and really fallout from the week and everything surrounding Ace Bailey, I feel like it shouldn't be this hard. Like it shouldn't be. I feel like, right, like already, first off, I feel like I'm already exhausted by the Sixers career of Ace Bailey. I already feel like you're in a relationship with a girl that you really like. It's not working at all. All your friends know it's not working. but you're like, no, you don't know. It's going to work. It's going to be great. Like, I kind of feel that's where I'm at right now emotionally with Ace Bailey. And
but
I know
but I love her.
I love her, man. You don't know what it's like. But it's just the two of us. It's just her dad, man. Her dad is just putting bad thoughts in her head, man. In this case, the dad is the agent, and we'll get into that. But Keith, if my head and my heart are aching like this already, your head must be spinning being in the middle of it all.
Yeah, and here's the thing. That's the thing that the agent is the dad of one of his former teammates. But yeah, but it's
wow.
but here's the deal. So apparently, sources told me, multiple sources, that the reason why the meeting was canceled or workout was canceled is because his agency wanted an insurance or guarantee that the 76ers were going to draft him at the third spot. Daryl Morey would not give that. He's not going to give it. And I understand it. You want the guy to come in for a reason, and because you want questions answered, and you're not going to guarantee that. Now, I'm just going to say this. Something that happened before. When Markelle Fultz came in for a workout for the 76ers, Markelle Fultz didn't come in until the team guaranteed that they were definitely going to move up and trade for him to go number one. So basically, when we saw Markelle Fultz working out, the trade was already basically made, right? So that's what happened. So, and we see how that panned out. So I can understand why Daryl Morey's like, nah, we're not doing that. Secondly, from what I'm hearing is that, the agent, wants Ace Bailey to be on the East Coast. He wants him to be anywhere from Atlanta all the way up to New York City. So when you look at that, you think of it like, okay, where's the agency based out of? Well, where the agent and them live in Atlanta. Where's the agent from? He's from Newark, New Jersey. So when you look at it that way, it makes sense. And then you think about it, like, look at the teams he can go to. What that is that's like the Charlotte Hornets, that's the Sixers, that's the Washington Wizards, and that's the Brooklyn Nets. And Washington, the Nets, and the Charlotte Hornets, well, more so Washington and the Nets. This guy could go in there and be kind of like a star, so to speak. But these are the breaking developments of what's going on, with this thing. But I will say this, a lot of agents are basically mystified on the way that this thing is going on because they feel like it's messing up the kid's bag, so to speak.
I mean, I don't know how it couldn't. Like, hold on a second. You want me to guarantee you that we're going to draft you? We're going to draft you at 3. If you're there, in other words, you're there at 3, we're definitely going to take you. Like, that's what the workout is for. Like, we would love to meet you. We'd love to see you work out. We'd love for you to maybe meet Tyrese Maxey and see how things kind of operate here. And then at the end of that, you ace the test. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think he has to ace it even as much as VJ Edgecombe does. He just has to prove that he's not the guy that is kind of being portrayed right now by his agent. And I think he'll be graded on a curve because of his skill level and his also high ceiling. So the idea of, we're going to guarantee to take you before we really sit down and talk to you and watch you work out and see how you mesh with our players that are already around here. On what planet does that happen and it works out? Because you mentioned Markelle Fultz, and as we all know, that didn't work out too well, unfortunately.
Yeah, it didn't. But the thing is, it did not. I'm just laughing because, you think about it. He's a guy, if he would have came in and if he would have basically killed the workout, the 76ers probably would have taken him anyway. Now, who knows? Like, we talked about this yesterday. It's all about getting the guy the bag, right? And
Right.
You want to make sure that he's in the perfect situation. So I understand that. But I also understand why certain people are upset and saying, what are you doing? Like, go ahead and do this. To me, you got to understand something. Whenever you pull a tactic like this, and it's not the first time that has happened,
Right.
but when you do things like that, it's going to get out. People around this league, they talk. And then what it does is, maybe it's part of your plan to have his stock slide so he can end up with the team that you want him to be at. But if you don't want that, it's kind of like, what are you doing? Because the guy, if he comes and he becomes a 76er, he's going to make $11.1 million next year. That's a lot of money. That's good money. Now, again, if you slide to like number 6 or number 7, bro, you're not making that money. Like, you're probably going to lose like at least $4 million. So, to me, it's one of those things where, yes, it's great to have them in a perfect situation, but you do have to know that a lot of people are going to talk about what you're doing. The kid's going to be under a microscope. You may have a chance of where the kid goes to Philadelphia if the Sixers draft them, where there are certain fans who are not going to forgive him. Not at all. And especially if he gets off and he struggles. There are going to be certain people who say, look, man, you saw all these red flags before. Why did you go out and get him? Get him out of here. Like, he's not that guy. Now, again, I think he has a huge upside. We both love him as a player, but at the same time, the Sixers have to have their work cut out in regards on what they're going to do.
How much do you think in the Sixers' mind, if you could put a percentage on it, great. If not, but if the Sixers were, say, 80%, 90% going to take Ace Bailey at number 3, how much do you think this has hurt his stock in the 76ers' eyes?
I mean, if he was like 80 or 90%, I think that, they look at it like, you know what, we got to Tyrese Maxey, PG, if you're still going to be here, you guys have to be like a great support system and we'll do it. But if it's 50-50, you know what I mean, or 60-40, and you see where, VJ came in and VJ was being a great, guy. And from what I hear, VJ, when he interviewed with the team in Chicago, he had a nice blazer on. He was dressed business casual. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
That's foot forward.
Yeah. To me, if you're half and half, I guess you go with the guy that you think is going to be less of a problem, or his people are going to be less of a problem. But if it's like 80-20, I think you still decide like, I got to take this guy because of his upside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know it's crazy, but I'm still on the Ace Bailey bandwagon. I'm like, this juice better be worth the squeeze, as they say. And I also like the idea of VJ Edgecombe coming in a blazer and like a full resume written on nice parchment in fine calligraphy, and then Ace Bailey just comes in, scrap of paper and crayon. Here you go. This is what I've done. Okay, take me, please. That's kind of how it feels like this is going down right now. I know there's a history here with the 76ers not having top picks pan out other than Joel Embiid. He did win an MVP. The injuries have obviously been a huge thing. But I just look at this whole situation. I look at the highest possible ceiling is still with Ace Bailey. And I know that this is a headache. You just hope that this is a phase that the agent is putting him through. And I think people should also remember, I don't think Ben Simmons, Keith, ever dreamt about really being a 76er. I know he loved Allen Iverson. I know he had the poster and Allen Iverson on his bedroom wall and all that stuff in Australia, but I don't think he ever dreamt of being a 76er. And he was taken at number 1 because the Sixers had the pick, obviously. He didn't put up much of a fight because he knew he was going to get that bag as a number 1 overall pick. Ace Bailey knows he could get the biggest possible bag by being the 3rd overall pick of the 76ers, because I don't think he's going 1. I sure as hell don't think he's going number 1. He's not going number 2. Next best option right there. And an East Coast team is the new news that you put out there to start the show. This is the best possible scenario, and I think he's just hurting a lot of people's opinion of him going into this whole debacle.
Can I say one thing, though? Can I say one thing? The difference between him and Ben Simmons was, Ben Simmons looked at the Sixers and said, yo, man, I got better dudes on my high school team when I played than they have at the Sixers right now.
Okay.
So I know I'm going to be the man. All I got to do is like rustle it away from Joel,
Embiid,
right?
Embiid, yeah.
And I'm going to play mind games with Markelle Fultz when he comes, like, that 1 year.
Oof.
The thing about Ace is kind of sort of like, man, do I want to be in a situation that Markelle was in, where like I'm the 3rd or 4th option, like, or do I want to be like, the guys who were drafted by the Houston Rockets last year, where they, their lottery picks, their top 5 picks, and they racked up more DMPs than anyone else. You know what I mean? So to me, that's the question. Like, that's what guys are like. Like, you don't want to, like Ben Simmons, man, he came into a situation where like, yo, I'm already the face of the franchise. You know what I mean? Like, yo,
Right.
Like, really, it was him and an injured Joel Embiid at the time. That was it.
See, I got to be real here, and my feelings about Embiid, I've said many times, I don't feel like he's playing a whole lot of games. I don't feel like he's going to be a whole big level or a great level. But man, the opportunities here for you to grow as an athlete and become, and I hate to use this term because I think it puts a lot on him. You have a chance to become the savior here, the good guy, the guy that represents the next chapter, where Embiid and even Paul George to an extent, they represent more of the old guard and what I think the 76ers are trying to eventually move away from. And I know that sounds crazy considering it was just last summer you saw the extension go out to Joel Embiid, but the bottom line is, talking about level of play, talking about being the star, Ace Bailey has the opportunity to do that as a great compliment to Tyrese Maxey, and Tyrese Maxey a great compliment to him. I know it's not like that right now on paper, as we said yesterday, but on the court, I feel like that's really where it's going to start to shine.
I'm gonna say this before because I know we're long.
It's digital, man. We got all day.
Listen, let me just go and enlighten you on something about the NBA.
Go.
Players don't care about. I shouldn't say all players, but in my 14 years of being around this league, dudes care more about making money and being in positions that's going to allow them to make more money than winning championships. Now, typically you see a guy who, after he got that bag, right, he gets the bag, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I'm basically not as good as I was. So before I retire, it's all about me getting that championship. How many times do you see old veteran dudes go and take a minimum to be on a championship team? Like,
sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if we really want to be real, if it wasn't about being the guy and being the man, Kevin Durant would have stayed probably with the Golden State Warriors. He probably would have won 2 more championships, right? And this and that. But no, it's crazy. Kyrie would have said, I'm going to stay with LeBron, right? I'm going to stay wherever I'm at. To me, it's like, it's weird, man. Dudes, and dudes will love to go to a bum squad if they got money. And here's the reason why. When you think about this, you go to a trash team. They got a lot of money. What happens? They spread the ball. You go to work. Next thing you know, because everybody knows, and here's a secret, and this is kind of bad. But what happens is you go to a bum team, and then all of a sudden, everybody's when they're picking first team and second team All NBA, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I don't know who's the third best point guard in the East. So, or you'll go, okay, well, let me look at these stats. So people start looking at the stats, and then they'll say, oh, well, this guy was third in the league in scoring. Okay, his team only won 20 games, but he was third in the league in scoring. And what happens is that guy becomes third team All NBA. And then what happens is, because he's third team All NBA, he gets a super max contract. That's what dudes care about, man, unfortunately.